What is going on? Welcome back to Draft Bros. We are back with another top 5 battle with the 2024 NFL draft class. Schmo, give them the what for. Tell them what we're talking about today.
What's crack-a-lacking? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So if you can't see overhead, we're talking about edge rushers. We're going to go over our top 5. And then at the end, we're going to talk about maybe some guys we didn't get to or guys we wish would have made it but just missed it. Are you excited? Do you feel that? Do you feel that?
Overly excited.
I feel it. My chair's shaking. Oh, it feels good to be talking about the edge class.
My chair's always shaking in all my videos, but today we already know that there's going to be some heated debates. Let's just put it that way. Some very big discrepancies between the top of our list. So stay tuned for that because I'm very excited for the fact that I get to rip Mr. Schmo apart and he gets to rip me apart. Hopefully the show continues after, but God only knows.
I was going to be gentle. Like, Alex, I got corgis on my shirt. You can't.
I can't be mad to someone who has corgis on their shirt.
You can't eviscerate corgis, my friend.
You can't eviscerate corgis.
But
it might not be.
I got a question for you.
What?
Alex, who's your number 5?
I knew that you were going to transition to that.
Segue.
My number 5 is a guy who we've been kind of hoping for to step up and be able to come into the draft cycle, be a little bit more consistent for a hot minute. JT Tuimoloau out of Washington. You will see that I'm pretty much on brand as one of those guys who ends up either loving or hating Washington players. This year, it's going to be a love. Also hint for later in the list. ZTF is 6'4", 251 pounds. According to Schmo, used to be a little bit heavier than that. So he thinned out. He has really good movement skills, very twitchy. So even at that lower, even though it's still adequate size, he still is very much able to remain a very functional athlete. Big fan of that. He has shown in the past to be a little bit more, in terms of technicalities, a higher level, a little bit more refined. He took a big step back, in my opinion, over the past year, which is why he's not higher on my list. But someone who I really do hope that he ends up taking that step up and somebody who I think can. I just think that his refinement has taken a step back with kind of just the success overall that Washington's had. I feel like he's taken a little bit of the eye off the ball in terms of that. But since I have seen it, got to show him some love. He's a good edge rusher all the way around. But I just think that maybe he took away some of his competitive advantage in terms of what he used to be in terms of impacting the line of scrimmage at that heavier weight. I feel like it's definitely tapered off a bit, but he at least added the speed when he reduced the power.
Yeah. It's funny because we were talking about how he shedded weight, and I didn't even see it in my notes until now. As I put in 2021, he shedded 20 pounds. So
yeah. So when I started studying
him, he was 270.
Yes. So when I started studying him, that was after the weight drop. That was when I first started because I was like, I don't remember him dropping weight, but it was the year before that he dropped.
I mean, to be fair, that coincided with the ACL tear.
Yeah.
So, which again resulted in him in missing a large chunk of 2021. I think he only played 2 games. He was basically on a pitch count in 2021, and then he got stuck in the rotation there. But he was used heavily in the rotation. He was very successful at that. Mm-hmm. Like the dude's just stupid strong, and I don't think he's like an explosive guy. He's not a bendy guy, but I think he's ready for NFL strength. So that's always a big plus. So I love ZTF, man. I've been waiting for him to come out for 2 years now.
Mm-hmm. I know we've been waiting. We've been like just like this the whole time. Like that. What's the dude, the antagonist in The Simpsons? You know,
Burns.
Burns. There we go.
Yeah, that's one person. I know there's a lot of fans of The Simpsons. I wasn't one of them.
Oh, well, there we go. Now people actually like me more, so that's good. But I'm going to disagree with you on the twitchiness. I think that he was extremely twitchy as an athlete, very explosive, and very good in space.
I think he has a good first step, but like, I don't know. I don't think it's like that high of a level. I think it's like fine. I think he has a very powerful first step.
I will tear into you for that statement later on as we talk about some players who I do not think have a very good first step, and we'll relate it back to the.
I know exactly who to.
Oh, I know. You already know. It's
Alex. Your voice went. Did you unplug your mic?
I'm back.
You're back just in time because I want to talk about my number 5, and I'm going to stay at Washington with
Sweet.
Braylon Trice. This dude was really nasty last season. A lot of people thought he may come out. He was kind of like that name that was flown around with who was the Iowa guy that just got drafted to the Packers?
Packers?
Iowa, not Iowa State.
Oh, my bad. I was thinking Will McDonald.
Black guy.
LVN, Lucas Van Ness.
Lucas Van Ness. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was kind of the name floating around with Van Ness as like someone who could maybe declare. And he ended up deciding to return to school. But last year was first year as a starter, and he made first team all Pac-12 because he was that freaking good. He had a 30% pass rush win rate last season. We're not talking true pass sets. So insane. He's packed on 40 pounds since arriving at wherever Washington is. I don't know. I'm a Hurricanes fan. I know it's in Washington.
Yep.
So yeah, he's done that. He's currently 6'4", 267. I think he does a good job of return speed into power. And he's just got a strong lower body. I really love guys that churn their feet through contact, and he does that. And the dude, I think, has extremely strong hands, and especially when you consider that he was playing with a club last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I think we were talking about this a few days ago. I was like, did you know he played karate or he did karate?
He's like a black belt in karate or something.
Yeah, it's freaking wild. That's just insane. He actually played a lot of sports in high school: basketball, baseball, and soccer as well. But I think he's strong at the point of attack, that he does a good job of stacking and shedding, keeping himself disengaged from the blockers. And honestly, my biggest concern with him, and I think we talked about this as well, was leverage, maintaining it, sinking deep.
Yeah.
I think he's more powerful than he is actually bendy or flexible. But I mean, to an elite degree, honestly. And I mean, kind of nitpicking. I mean, you can't argue against the production, man. The dude was very, very good in that regard. Did have a missed tackle problem last year, but is what it is, man. I'm a big fan of Trice. Got him as second rounder.
Yeah.
Not that matters right now.
Not yet. Well, we like to have our projections just so we are able to categorize it a little bit better. I will just say maybe a missed tackle rate could happen because you have a club on your hand. Yeah, it's not very easy to tackle with one hand, to be fair. But I don't love Braylon Trice the way that you do. That's why I'm going to save him to the later in the list because I have him a lot more. So who's your number 4? I'll let you go back to back.
It's Dallas Turner. It is the pipsqueak Dallas Turner. That's not fair. He's not that small.
He's as heavy as Will Anderson.
I knew that would get on your nerves. He's 6'4", 242. So yes, he is not ideal. Typically, you want those guys at the 250 or 245, kind of a bare minimum. But he's also young. He could put on more weight. It's fine. Let's not overanalyze that. Yeah, he has been starting since he arrived there for the most part at Alabama, or at least he's been heavily used in the rotation. He was as a freshman, made all SEC freshman team. He had 10 starts last year. And the dude's just been phenomenal, man. He's got an elite quickness, elite first step, and you darn well should at 242. I'm just going to say that.
This is true.
Yeah. So he looks like he just has a natural feel for setting up blockers. I think it was the Texas game. He had this nice little Euro step that was just very, very smooth. I want to say it was Texas. I'm not positive. Don't quote me on it. But I do know Texas was one of the games I watched with him. In general, man, I think he plays with violent hands, which is great. You want to see good hand usage. And I don't think he has a power problem. Maybe a little undersized. Don't see a power problem there. I do think there are times where he struggles to disengage with blockers. And just because you have violent hands or powerful hands doesn't mean you are being active with your hands or using them well, using them properly. And I thought he got locked up a lot more times than I expected, especially when considering who he was across from and I almost said Will McDonald. Will Anderson.
Mhm.
There we go. There are times where he loses track of the football in the back of the field, but I think a lot of times it was like he gets in the back of the field so quickly, it's almost like he's not
Yeah.
expecting to be there. It's like, oh shoot, where the hell's the play? Where's it going on? But he's so stinking fast. He can get after it. Even if he loses track of where the ball is, he can close the distance. He's got that pursuit speed. He's young, he's lean, but more importantly, he's young. He'll develop that body.
Yeah, and I mean, you can literally go to Chipotle and then you'll end up at 6'4", 245 if we're going to be completely honest. So I'm not too worried about the weight. I
Double meat,
also
double right, maybe.
exactly, double meat, double wrap. You can put even like make it like the quesadilla wrap. I'm telling you, this guy's going to get up to 250 if he ends up eating that. So I also don't love Dallas Turner the way you do, which is why I'm going to hold my.
I thought you loved Dallas Turner.
That's why I'm holding my opinion to the top 3.
Oh, okay.
Love him.
I'm
I'm being a little facetious here. My number 4 guy is.
I was like, I don't even know what your rankings are now.
Oh yeah, no, you know exactly how I feel. You know how I feel. There's a reason why I'm not making comments because I feel like I want to have a little bit more of a podium later on.
Yeah, you could talk. Yeah, you could talk about him later. Just say, hey, I got him higher. I'll talk about him later.
Well, that's part of the surprise. I was just being a little bit more on the DL about it. But my number 4 is Xavier Thomas. So a name that you're not going to hear very often. Actually, when Cleveland Ferrell was first drafted, this dude was coming out and everybody's like, oh, this is the next big Clemson edge rusher. Freak athlete. He's just not been able to stay on the field, not been able to be consistent enough to be able to make a big splash. I think that there's a significant drop off before my top 3. So keep it take this with a pinch of salt. But he's an extremely smart player. Obviously, he started out as I think he was the number 1 guy coming out of high school, if I'm not mistaken, but he was one of the top edge rushers coming out of high school. Freak athlete. He's actually extremely powerful as well. Very well balanced in terms of being able to handle the run defense as well as being a really good pass rusher. He just hasn't been able to be consistently on the field enough. That's been the big problem with him, but still a freak athlete, freak size. I think he's going to be something truly special if he's able to get that chance and stay healthy.
So my number 3 is Jared Verse. I absolutely loved Jared Verse last year. He would have been my edge 2 if he declared. I was very sad that he didn't, but I get it. Florida State, they kind of got a championship team next year, or this season. So it makes all the sense in the world. He was a guy that I called out early, like preseason last year, as someone to watch out for. I think he just snuck into my top 10 edge rusher videos there. And I was able to watch only 2 games from when he played at Albany because, fun fact, they don't play anybody of note, and it's hard to get film on that. But I was able to watch the Virginia, and I think it was Syracuse. And it was, was it Virginia Tech? I think it was Virginia Tech because it was Christian Darrisaw, I'm pretty sure. I don't know, regardless. Neither here or there. But he had a really good outings against 2 Power 5 squads. Then he makes the jump to Florida State. And I remember watching his spring game, and I was like, I love this dude. He's like jacked out of his mind. Sitting there at 6'4", 253, jacked out of his mind, and he was looking good. And then he came out and annihilated LSU. Like, I think the previous week they faced like Duquesne or something. He had a great outing, but good. He should have. But then he did it against LSU. Granted, they were, I think, 2 freshman tackles, but still, it was impressive. Super impressive. He did get a little banged up during the year in the Louisville game, but that was fine. He was able to come back from that. I think he may not even missed a game.
I think he missed 1 or 2.
He did miss the next game. Excuse me. But regardless, finished first team All ACC, and this dude might have one of the best bull rushes you will see in this class. He turns speed to power very quickly. I love the get off. I like the length. Pressure rate was insane last season, 23.7%. The dude is just freaking phenomenal. I don't think he has a complete toolbox of pass rush moves, which is fine. Honestly, if you could just master 3 or 4 moves, then you can honestly just make a killing in the NFL if you're really good at those moves. Like
Mhm.
I think it was Adrian Claiborne. I know, not a big name, but like he
Yeah.
was known for having only one move,
Yep.
and
Good move.
some tackles were unable to stop that one move. So it'd be like wild when he would have like a game where it's like,
Like 5 sacks.
yeah, he had
Yep.
5 sacks this game. It's like, yeah, if you can't defend one move, then
Yep.
you're toasting as Claiborne. And Claiborne honestly was a solid depth player his whole career. Like
He was.
Verse, much better than that. I'm just using him as an example. Even if we go back with came out of Penn State, went to Atlanta.
You're stump
Huh?
you're stumping me.
Oh, he got drafted in the second round to Atlanta.
When? Oh, you're Ebiketie?
Ebiketie, yeah. Ebiketie, he was another guy that probably really only had like 3 moves, and they were still
Really
he
good
was
moves.
exceptionally solid. Like he
Yeah.
knew all the different like counters out of this move
Yeah.
and whatnot. So it was like you can be efficient at the next level. I'm just saying that's just something I would like to see a bit better.
Yeah.
Tackling technique, not great. 27.3 missed tackle rate. Kind of is what it is. Hopefully, it could be a better wrapper upper
Mhm.
finisher. That's a better word. But I love Verse, man. I was just so happy that he was a guy that I got to quickly last season and ended up being right on.
That's fair. I mean, that's why I wanted you to have the podium. He's my number 3 as well. Obviously, he didn't miss very much time off that injury, and when I started watching his games later in the year, you could tell he was still hurt, but my god, do I tip my cap off to that man for the fact that he still tried. You could see how hard he was trying to be back to 100%, and he was playing at 70% and was, he might as well just play poker. He looked like he was at 85%. You can tell he was not even close to being 100% healthy, and he was able to still play at such a high level. There were just a couple of times where he couldn't make that bend as fast enough. And, I was like, okay, I've seen him do it before. So I was willing to ignore it. Just props to him for actually being like willing to push that extra amount because he's a really great player. He has the best pass rushing grade that I've given in this class so far, just overall pass rushing ability. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, I was an Arnold Ebiketie guy, so I'm fine with a guy having a
Me
limited
too.
number of moves that are really good. I think that's perfectly fine. So I'll go to my number 2. So my top 2 are both guys who I've already talked about. I'll go into my number 2, and then I mean, I could do a 2-1 since we've already talked about it.
No, you talk about 2, and then I'll talk about
All right, we'll go back and forth. We'll ping
2,
pong
and
it.
then yeah.
Yeah. Mine's Braylon Trice. Braylon Trice obviously already brought up over 30% pressure rate, had a club on his hand, and still did that. 270 pounds, 267. Whoop-de-doo. Again, eat a Chipotle burrito. You're back up there. But just someone who's super well balanced. I really value that UT game, especially. I don't really fully believe in Pac-12 tackles. I think that even though UT doesn't have necessarily the best tackles in the world, I'm going to value that game a little bit higher than some other games. And it was one of his worst graded games. So I wanted to make sure that one, I got to see him not at his best because the week before he had 18 pressures. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Guy's a freaking beast. But like we talked about it, speed to power, the impact on the offensive tackle is ridiculous. Keeps his legs moving at such a high rate. I'm such a huge fan of him. You've already gone enough into depth about it, but just somebody who has the frame I'm looking for, the athleticism. Yes, the bend could be better, but sometimes you don't have to be a master of all trades. You can just be a master of a couple of things like we've been talking about. And that bull rush game is ridiculous. That power is ridiculous. And I still think he has amazing moves in his toolkit. So somebody I have a ton of respect for. And yeah, he just has first full year starting and he's still balling the F out. He's going to have not a club on his hand probably this year. And he very well might be able to improve that missed tackle rating, even maybe improve that pressure rate. So very excited to see what's going to happen, especially if, Washington might end up trying to leave the Pac-12, but it's not
He'll
going to
be
change.
gone before then.
Yeah, he's going to be long gone before. But hopefully for future Washington edge rushers, they're going to have to be able to deal with a little bit more translatable tape. But big fan of him overall.
All right, my number 2, and this is where I go into projection city with these next 2 guys.
That's exactly what happens when you know that you are not able to say the tape is good enough. But corgis. Corgis.
Corgis, please, thank you.
Corgis.
So I got Chop Robinson at 2, He's coming in at 6'3", 253. I'm going to go ahead and get some of the negatives about him now. Play strength, but he did put on weight after last season. So I'm hoping he could be better at stacking and shedding and not basically just getting taken out of the play on engagement right off the bat. I'm hoping that's a thing. I'm hoping he's stronger at the point of attack. So I'm just anticipating that. I don't think he uses his hands well. And on top of that, I don't know. I'm not positive if he has 33-inch arms, which could be a big thing.
Yeah.
So those are the negatives out there. Positives, I think this dude's got an elite first step. I think you'll be hard pressed to find someone quicker to the quarterback or quicker out of the gates. That's how I feel about him. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. He's got great bend. He accelerates exceptionally well around the corner. He turns speed to power well. He's a guy that I'm a big fan of, guys that just keep churning their feet through contact regardless of position. And he was a guy that did that, even though he maybe had a variety of success or lack thereof with that. Nice spin move, and in general, huge motor. On top of that, I kind of fell in love with a little bit of his backstory, which doesn't help a little bit. But he came from a family with 7 siblings, right? And he, with the losses of his brother and his sister, kind of led to him being a major in criminology? Is that how you say the word?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm terrible at pronunciations. I'm terrible at words. And I was just like, that tugged at my heartstrings. And I was like, you know what? This is a guy I'm going to be rooting for next year. I'll leave it to you to criticize. Go at it.
Yeah, so Chop for me is 4th worst on the edges I've seen. He's still like on the guys who have full official grades. Dude, to be fair, the guys who I have towards the top, you have a similar drop in terms of like where they are. I mean, ZTF you have at 9. So for me to have Chop just like towards the bottom of my top 10.
I still have a day 2 grade on him. I'll just say that.
I have a 4th round grade on Chop. I think he's still solid.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's similar to Chami last year, right?
I loved Chami
about that.
Exactly. I loved Chami, to be fair.
I hated Chami.
See, that's why there's a big difference. This is also why you need to subscribe to both of us. So feel free to check out our YouTube channels because you already have, because that's the reason why you're here. But for me, I'm taking this directly from my scouting report. I obviously love to watch when players play against Ohio State, whether they're corners, whether they're defensive linemen, offensive linemen. I like to be able to see the best versus the best. So this is a quote from that game. Not a bad athlete and has tools, which is, I think, fair. I mean, you say he has an elite first step. I didn't see that. But if he can't do well versus DeJuan Jones, he sure as hell can't do crap versus
that
NFL
man's
crap.
A mountain. Do you know how long it takes to travel around a mountain?
A mountain, his feet are like sticks compared to his upper torso. This dude should be bending around him to the point where like he should be getting past him every single play. If he has that elite first step, DeJuan does not have an elite kick drop. Like he is not.
He moves exceptionally well though for a guy 360 pounds.
360. I'm not saying this Chop is a bad athlete. He's as I said, not a bad athlete. But for somebody who has an elite first step, you should be able to get around a mountain that's not that athletic on paper. Athletic for his size, but not athletic. So the one thing about him was that he was super inconsistent. I talked about him as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, tweeted out about it. And in that same game, as the game progressed, he got very comfortable with his own body. He was actually finally able to have that really nice first step. And he showed flashes. Very inconsistent about it, but I could still see why people loved him. I was like, finally, yes, Chop, get in the groove. So I ended up watching a couple other games. Ended up turning back to the dude who I saw at the start of the game. And I feel like that could totally change with more size. Like we're talking about, one of his biggest areas of weakness is that impact, that use of the power could totally change when he adds on weight. So that's a really good thing that he added that weight. But just like I saw with the opposite with ZTF, when you add weight, you could be losing that explosiveness. does that take away what makes him great? With ZTF, I love the power he had at like more of a heavier frame. With Chop, I love we love his ability to be able to bend at his weight. So hopefully it doesn't happen. Maybe he will end up rising. I'm not saying he's bad. He's still a 4th-round pick to me. Just top 2 compared to significantly lower. Have to bring it up.
All right. Do you want me to talk about my? Yeah, I'll talk about my number one. Let's finish with. We'll finish with your guy and then get into some of the guys that didn't make the list.
I'll say this. How about I do my number 1 because I'm gonna go back on your number 1.
Okay,
So
I get it. You want to have the last word. Got it.
Exactly. My number 1 is Dallas Turner. I love him to death. He is pretty much a miniature version of Will Anderson. I don't have him graded as highly as Will Anderson, but pretty damn close. I think he is the most versatile edge rusher I've ever seen. He plays zone coverage better than most linebackers that I've studied. And I think that his elite first step is the best in the class. I think it straight line, it's unbelievable. I think the biggest issue that not many people like to bring up is that Alabama's defense doesn't use Dallas Turner nor Will Anderson to their maximum capabilities. And that's very scary because they're freaking monsters on the field. I see moments where I feel like they're being used at 80% of what they could be. And sometimes I could
242. Go play 4i.
No, but like they will have him basically play an initial spy. Like they'll have him hesitate before going into a rush where it's like you can tell that he's assigned to do something and either says hell with it, I'm going to blitz, or there's just moments where I feel like there's a clear shot, let him do what he wants to do. I didn't feel like he had the creative freedom to be truly himself. Will Anderson was a 2-gap player at a lighter weight, should have been a 1-gap player. Regardless, I feel like there's some mismanagement on that defense. Who am I to say, of course? I mean, hell, we're just talking here, and I'm talking about Alabama's defensive coordinator, but I think that there could have been a little bit more usage out of him. But still, unbelievable athlete. And the fact is, I couldn't tell he was 242. I felt like he could have been 252. Very similar to Jared Verse. He's able to convert speed to power very well, even though they don't carry that 270-pound frame. Something I respect about both of those players, why they both ended up fairly close in my top 3. I think that just when it comes to Turner, he really has taken on that mentorship role from Will Anderson. He really did sit there, listen, and learn. And I could tell from his ability to combo technique. And, he does have an issue getting off players. But I feel like the issue with me was more that he would block shed the player and always end up right. And I saw that there were quite a few plays where the runner was going to his left and he would still shed right. And it's like, you got to change it up a little bit. So I think that was probably his only issue, like major issue I saw, is that he didn't have that ability to shed both ways. It can happen within a year. So fell in love with him, but that's going to be my little spiel about him. Unbelievable player, unbelievable athlete. My comp for him is Von Miller or Kayvon Thibodeau.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, I think he's going to be an all-star.
Well, again, we're going back to projection city for my number 1 as I got JT Tuimoloau. Yep. Probably butchered it. I'm going to call him JT from the for the rest of this video.
JT.
Listen, we're gonna go start with the cons. I'm gonna say his high end reps, freakiest things you will see in this class. Few and far between. To be fair, wasn't a starter for Ohio State last season, and I'm hoping this season we're gonna see all that, just all those high traits. Him just put it together, because oh man, I think he could definitely be something special at 6'4". 270, also played basketball in high school, was offered a basketball scholarship at Oregon. And he said, nah, I'm a football player. And I'm hoping he's right. The missed tackle rate was pretty high. I thought he closes well on ball carries. He just isn't a good finisher. 25.8% missed tackle rate last season. I don't think he attacks the same, like he doesn't attack with the same like ferocity in the run game as he does in the passing game, and he sometimes will struggle to like disengage from contact. The dude just lacks counters. There isn't a counter tool in his pocket. If you could stonewall him, then he's probably as good as dead in the play.
Mm-hmm.
However, he's long, he's strong, he's powerful. And I think he can be explosive. That Penn State game, best game of a football player I may have ever seen on the defensive end. Dude, that Penn State game was freaking nuts.
It was nuts.
And it's unfortunate for him that's not the only game on his tape.
Mhm.
But darn right terrifying, man. Like, he's got a great bull rush where he can. I think he attacks low. I think he again could hit with strong hands. I think he does a good job with speed to power. And man, I'm telling you, dude. I'm telling you. With a year of consistent play, I think we're going to be talking about him. I don't know if he's necessarily a blue chip player, but I think we could be talking about him in the top 10. Because I went into my edge rankings like I loved Jared Verse. Jared Verse is going to be my guy. I think he was the first write up for the edge class I did. And then I followed that up with Turner because he was like the most talked about. And then JT was the next. I was like, man, JT, like those tools, dude. Like, I love Verse and I love Turner, but they just don't have the tools of a guy like JT. They don't. Not at that size.
Okay, so you're saying that they don't have the tools JT does, but he doesn't have a counter in his toolkit.
Yeah. Okay. I'm talking about the physical and athletic tools.
So you're saying just because he's a big guy who can move with some arms,
like, then yes, he's going to be the top edge rusher in this class. This isn't okay. It's not like we're at the end of the season and these are like final evals. This is,
of course,
we're in projection city right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just saying he is built different. And if all that comes together, I'm telling you, this dude will be top 10, much like how a lot of people anticipated.
So what's better about him than Trice? Because Trice already has some of those counters.
I don't think he has the explosiveness. I don't think Trice has the explosiveness, not compared to JT. And I think he's a way more flexible athlete than Trice is.
Okay. So JT is my lowest graded edge rusher. Before I dropped Richard Jubinor for becoming 220 pounds and pretty much being able to end
He's an off-ball linebacker.
He's
going to be making a different list.
Yeah, he's not even going to be making a list at this point.
We might not at the end.
So obviously I like to value games where you're playing against top talent. Penn State, obviously that game was ridiculous. I'm not going to watch purely the exception and grade off of that. I know you didn't either, but I'm going to look at games, especially like Georgia, where like I'm going to heavily value you versus Amarius Mims because you should be kicking Amarius Mims' ass as someone who is seasoned enough compared to Amarius Mims in his second game. Obviously, we love Amarius Mims. Check out that tackle video we already uploaded. But I thought that the one word that came across my mind, 98% of the plays was ineffective. His legs move way too slow to push the pocket fast enough to make a difference on the play. I don't think that he doesn't have the ability to push the pocket. I think that he's too slow pushing the pocket. If you take the time it takes for him to get to the quarterback, it's going to be about 5 seconds. In the NFL, average time to throw for quarterbacks, probably the 2.5 second range, like 2.5 to 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Roughly. So I don't think he's going to get there. I personally did not see a really powerful first step. Could that be because maybe his ankle might have been wonky? He didn't eat his Wheaties in the morning. Sure. I mean, like we saw what happens when he eats his Wheaties versus Penn State. It's
People
there.
Still eat Wheaties.
Well, that's the phrase. I don't know. I mean, mini wheats are good, man. Like let's pipe down on the mini wheat hate.
Frosted mini wheats. That's why I have a weight problem.
Frosted mini wheats are why I ended up having a weight problem for a while. So I relate. But JT, like especially versus the run game, I really felt like he wasn't there 100% of the time. I did not like what he was putting on the field apart from in that Penn State game. The Georgia game is not graded as his worst game by far either. And that's a game where he should have stood out, should have continued building on that momentum of the late season where he did have quite a few solid games in there. It's not like he fell off a cliff after the Penn State game. Outside of the Penn State game, he didn't do very well, but it still wasn't like he became a pumpkin after the Penn State game. He just wasn't, Superman on the field.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair in that Georgia game, the star coming out of that was Mims.
Exactly. That's why that's what really sat poorly with me is that a dude who's played 2 or 1 game before ended up schooling a guy who we talked about as Superman a couple weeks before that. And I didn't see the explosive first step. And I really hate defenders that cannot create a difference on the play after the first thing goes down. When the first thing goes wrong, because in the NFL, you're going to go against a really solid tackle. They're going to probably be good at defending your first move. They're going to be good at that. Can you make that counter? You said you've admitted to it. There's not a counter in his book. That sits wrong. Like this sits really poorly with me. I'm a big guy on being able to make the most when the play breaks down. So it makes sense why we have such a big discrepancy on our ratings because
Yeah.
I value that really highly. Like when shit hits the fan, how do you react? He doesn't react well at all. But we've seen what happens when everything goes right. And he's definitely a force to be reckoned with. He's not bad. I still have a 5th round grade on him, like a 4th to a 5th. He's similar range to Chop Robinson. So it's not like he's chopped liver, but
2 guys I love.
yeah, the dude. Well, it's pretty applicable right now. It's just those guys certainly sat very. I was coming in hoping that they'd be top 15 players for me. They're arguably not going to end up at the end of the day being top 15 edge rushers. A little bit harsh, but they're still going to be. But they're definitely pushing towards the bottom half of that.
All right. Let's talk about some of the guys that just missed the list here. And I know there's one you want to specifically talk about.
Yes. Well, I'll let you go into somebody first because I just went on an absolute rampage. And
Okay, way to pat yourself on the back, bud.
I,
I'm going to talk about Cedric Johnson out of Ole Miss. I'm a big fan. I loved who was it? Sam Williams. Dude, Sam Williams was so nice.
Oh, yeah.
And then I believe they added someone last year who ended up going in a decent range. I wasn't nearly as high on him though. But
it's like Tavares Robinson or something like that.
Yeah. There we go. And he was fine. I just didn't think he was like early day 3. But like Johnson, I think there's a case because he has a lot of production to his name. He made Bruce Feldman's freaks list last season. I think he probably should make it again this year. And this dude is jacked to the brim at 6'3", 265. The dude is an ox. He has a good first step. He was recorded going 20 miles an hour last season. Easy to see why, man. I'm a big fan. Good at the point of attack. I think for him, it's just the mental aspect because there are times where he is either early or late off the snap. And he is, in particular, when he is late, he's got to make up for it with those athletic and physical tools. Yeah. The missed tackle rate was high, not nearly as high as some of the other guys we've mentioned on this list, but it was still pretty darn high. And he is a guy that struggles against double teams. There were cases, last season, like Tennessee, I kind of noted where he just was taken out of the game altogether. Just because of good double teams. But I mean, I'm glad that he was recognized as a force to warrant a double team because like Tennessee had a pretty good offensive line last season. So
yeah,
I'm totally okay with that. But yeah, he's been starting for like the last 2 seasons. He's coming to now year 3 as a full-time starter. So I'm really excited for him.
Well, I'm excited to be able to give him a full grade because it's somebody who I've been actually really intrigued. I love you and I both fell in love with Sam Williams, so obviously
we
have
did.
some affinity. Oh, man, I had a 2nd round grade on him, even with those allegations that were out on him. I was like, just when I got to see him school Evan Neal and like have a really good joust with him, that's when I kind of fell in love with Sam Williams back in the day. Yes, it's
like Game of Thrones.
Dude, I ended up watching a little bit of it the other day, so
really?
A little bit on the back of mind. Yeah, I know. It's just like it's a great show. But the guy who I want to talk about, Leatu Latu from UCLA, just missed the list by 0.25 points. I was saying like before this whether I should just have a tied 5 and go into it, but Latu, the big issue is the fact that this dude probably should have medically retired. Am I right? I mean, dude was messed up. You can get
it was a neck injury.
Yep.
Pretty darn severe. He went and got treated by Peyton Manning's doctor, so maybe signs of hope there, but it's not like Peyton Manning had like a long luxurious career after the neck injury.
Yeah. But regardless, he ended up, I mean, he's here and he does play pretty damn well. Ends up racking up a lot of pressures. He has Kevin Durant like arms. They just like they're surely lanky, but they do go down pretty damn far. He has probably 35, maybe 36-inch arms. They're ridiculously long. He might be pterodactyl, Derek Hall in this, but still a really solid athlete. I don't think he brings the power to the game that I necessarily want, but I think that it does rival more. Like when I rewatched him, it was more than what I expected based on my first eval of him. So, at least he's not ineffective in terms of power. But I would sure as hell not want this guy stuffing the run for me. I think that he's probably going to be more of a DPR, designated pass rusher, in the NFL. I think that he's still mechanically raw and he needs to polish it up, but he's just somebody who's not necessarily impressive in very many things. But those high-end reps are certainly something to like be able to tool with, similar to what you're talking about, JT. Those high-end reps are, worth taking a swing on. At 265, he's not a thin dude. He's a big dude. Just doesn't act like it on the field.
Yeah. I mean, a big reason why. Like, I think I've seen some places have him in the first round, but that neck injury is going to be hard to ignore, even with another like phenomenal year of production. So yeah. I want to talk about. I talked about him with you months ago when I did my edge stuff.
Don't bring
John Morgan III.
Okay.
Out of Arkansas.
Yes.
Because this dude initially, this is his first year at Arkansas. He played, I think, 5 years initially. Yeah, 5 years at Pittsburgh prior to this. Yeah. And he started the last 3 years. And he was someone that just kept jumping out on tape. And I thought it was not Chauncey Gardner Johnson. Oh my gosh. Cansey. Elijah Cansey. I thought it was Cansey because I think they both wore like number 70 something or something like that. And I was just like, man, this guy gets after it. He's 6'2", 273, not ideal length. And I don't think his like pursuit speed is anything special.
Sure.
But huge motor, really good get off. That stout build at 6'2" allows him to get real easy leverage. And I think this is a dude that you can kick inside as well. I think he would be really good for odd fronts and whatnot. But yeah, he was someone I was just like really, really shocked. Like I wasn't even trying to like. He was someone I just took note of while watching Kansas. So I was like, oh wow, this guy's not coming out. Oh, he's old as hell. Oh, he's going to Arkansas now. Oh man, that's going to be fun. And I cannot wait to see it against SEC competition.
I'm excited. I have two more guys. One is Corey Foreman out of USC. So when I like Corey Foreman.
I like him too. It's just USC needs to decide what they want to do with him.
Yes, I feel like he was definitely not put in a position to be his best version of himself. And it is a little bit tough to project how they're going to play when they're going to continue being misused. It's not like the Alabama situation where they're 80% where they could be. I feel like this is more like 50%. Like I did not. It felt like I was watching a very crap version of Dallas Turner. If you guys want an easy reference, he's 6'4", 235. Not the biggest guy in the world. And I think he was like 240 something last year. He actually thinned out a little bit.
Yeah. He can't. Yeah. That's why a lot of people thought he might be going to more an off-ball role this spring.
Well, no, you have to be 205 pounds for that. You have to be 205 to be with Eric Gentry level.
Yeah, I know, dude. I don't even know what he's going to be. I have no idea.
Dude, he's not even big enough to be a safety, but they put him at linebacker. Regardless, anyhow, he plays really well for his size. I'm a little bit worried since he is thinner that he might lose that competitive advantage. He does have enough speed for power. He can play against a run well enough. But again, now that he's even lighter, is he going to be able to handle a guard the way he could have? I'm a bit concerned. I think he's a good athlete, but he's just potentially taking another step back when he already is kind of the odds are stacked against him. You already have guys in that 240 to 250 range who have a similar skill set just elevated. Talk about Zion Tupuloa Fatui, Xavier Thomas, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner. All these guys are within that range of weight and explosiveness. It's very dangerous when you start becoming lighter and lighter, and then you're going to be praying to God that you're like Nick Herbig style of role. And there's not many guys who could succeed in that role when you have so many guys above you who can play a similar role much better.
All right. Since you got one more guy, I'm going to talk about my dude out of the U, Akeem Messidor, who honestly could end up being like, it's kind of interesting because coming in at 6'3", 280, he could end up being more of like this like penetrating 3-tech, or maybe he ends up playing a bit on the outside. Initially, he was at West Virginia, got homesick, ended up going to Miami because he is from Florida, obviously, but was a freaking phenomenal. Even at like West Virginia, he was used all over the place, like from like nose tackle to like wide 9. It was nuts. And I like this cat because it feels like they're that whole like jack of all trades but master of none. Like this dude has a ton of pass rushing moves, whether they be power or finesse. But if he does get locked up on that initial like push, then he's probably done. He's out of the play. He doesn't really have a counter. He doesn't have hand counters to fight his way back into the play. So it's like, yeah, I know. Now I'm nitpicking about freaking counters. Yeah, what the hell?
Here we go.
It doesn't have the tools of JT. I'm just gonna say that. A lot of times he does just try to like win with those physical tools that he does have because he is pretty quick for 280. Did a lot of damage this past season. I'm kind of interested to see how Miami will utilize him this year because they were pretty ambiguous with what they asked him to do. So I don't know if they're going to come down with more of a specific role, especially with Leonard Taylor probably going to be seeing the field a lot more. So maybe Messidor plays more outside. So it'll be interesting, but he's definitely someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah. I mean, Leonard Taylor. I'm so excited for us to
Dude, I freaking love Leonard Taylor. I don't know how the Hurricanes have still a mid defense with all that talent on it.
All the talent. They had Tyreek Stevenson too last year on top of 2 top tier safeties.
Being a Hurricanes fan, let me tell you.
Well, that's why I put him. Didn't I put him in like my top 5, top 10 last year? I was like, this team, I'm putting my name on it.
Oh yeah. I had them at 14, and then I forgot who their coach was.
That's fair. That's fair.
How does Oregon lose their head coach and somehow trade up? How do they get like? I didn't know Dan Lannon was on the market.
Yeah.
How do we get Cristobal? Bull crap, dude.
I know. The guy who I'm going to talk about. Trust me. The guy who I'm going to talk about is probably a name that nobody's heard of at this point because he was a sidekick to now a 3rd rounder to the Rams, Byron Young, and that's Tyler Barron. Tyler Barron is he's kind of more freaky. He's somebody who's very on, like he's not going to be someone who you see every single down, but he pops off. Extremely athletic. He's very similar to Byron Young in the fact that he's very bendy. You know, he's kind of the Brew McCoy of the defense. It really does feel like that. It's that dude who's probably not going to be an elite player. He's going to be a role player. But like when he steps up to the plate, you can definitely put your faith in him. When he catches fire, he's going to be somebody who like you don't want to face one-on-one. And I love seeing those streaks of those plays where he's just able to outshine even a guy who ended up running, well, it was like a 4.41 or something in his 40-yard dash. Nuts. So, and it was actually 4.3s. I think it might have been 4.39. Crazy. He's even able to outshine a guy like that in Byron Young. So definitely somebody, like I haven't fully graded him yet, but he's somebody who I've seen many, many times. I wrote his name down many, many times. He is a pressure machine, but we'll see if he's able to handle it on his own when there isn't someone who runs in the 4.3s or low 4.4s at 250 pounds across from him. But definitely a name to watch this year.
Yeah, I remember you talking about him last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm adding his
I can see
I didn't initially have it. Like, oh crap, I forgot about that cat.
I know. I was like excited to see when I was looking at your grades where he was going to be, and then I didn't see it, and I was like, damn. But definitely one of my next watches for sure for a full grade on him. And then I'm really excited to see Princely from Florida because I love Florida.
Yeah. Oh,
You have a third round grade on him. You just
yeah. A
sounded
lot of
like
him.
you're
Well, you know me,
yeah.
dude, Mr. Projection here. A
Fair.
lot of him is projection. So
And then there's just me, Mr. Anti-projection.
yeah, which
I
is
see what I
fine. I
see.
mean,
Yeah.
it honestly, like, it's probably much easier to like go through that at the
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I have all this hope and promise, and I'm gonna have to like torpedo some of these guys down my board when it doesn't come to fruition.
I mean, to be fair though, that's why we actually balance each other out very well. I'm the guy who looks at the production on the field. You look more for the potential. And there's a middle ground. I mean, we're obviously not the polar extremes, but like we're both probably right around here. And maybe in between us is the right amount. And at least you get both sides and you can make your opinion for
Somewhere
yourself.
over here. Somewhere
Yeah.
in this black empty
Somewhere
space.
somewhere over here is the correct spot. But at least you get to see, hey, this is who maybe could take a big rise. And obviously, I like to bring that up while I'm talking about the evaluation. I go based off a number scale. You go based off of what your eyes see, and then you bring your projection from that. So I'm basing my grades off of what I see. It just makes sense. It makes
Like,
sense.
I
One
would
more.
love to have a number scale. I really would.
It's a pain
Just
because I
anytime,
keep
yeah,
shifting around.
anytime I've tried it, I've never been satisfied.
Oh, you're telling me, dude. The wide receivers that we're going to be talking about next, it ripped my heart out because I have to give good players or players who I love really harsh grades because sometimes they're just not good in a category and it totally screws their grade up. So then I have to rework it and then I have to regrade the guys I've done before because I'm like, this isn't representative. Don't blame you. Just gonna be honest. Don't blame you at all. But um, for the video, that is going to be me literally shitting on my own grading system. Okay, but yeah, I'll let you do the outro because I'm just gonna sit in shame.
All right. Well, go ahead, hit that thumbs up. Let us know who are some of your hotly anticipated edge rushers in the comment section below because there's a ton of them. There's a ton of them. We only got to a few guys in this video, and I would love to expand my watch list. I literally just did with Alex's last entry. So yeah, go ahead and do that in the comment section. But as always, until next time, you be easy, our friends. Later.